Hello, my loyal listeners. Thank you for your support thus far. Please tune in and look at the first 10 episodes of Lana the Educators. Teachers have issues, yes.
Right, so we are here with Arthur Carr, author of So You Want to Be a Police Officer, and very engaging conversation so far. I want to take us into your process of writing. What do you think is the most challenging part of writing the book, or what was the most challenging part of writing this book for you?
Let me see. I think most challenging part was essentially finding someone who who would publish it for something that I could afford. I think that was the most challenging part. No, no. So I say that because the persons, I think now things have changed.
Mm-hmm.
Recently I recognize there's a huge community of persons who are encouraging persons to self-publish and these things.
Mm.
But when I was publishing, and that was just a short while ago,
Right.
2 years ago, it didn't seem as though it was such a huge field. At least I wasn't exposed to the numbers of persons who were assisting persons to self-publish.
Mm-hmm.
And so I approached persons who are in the traditional publishing sphere, and
Mm-hmm.
I received some pricing that made me think that writing could never be for me again. So, so that really was the biggest challenge.
Yeah.
So, but I mean, I might say jokingly, but
I
really
like
and
that you're
truly,
being real. People might think it romanticize writing because you see thousands of books out there, but there are
yeah,
challenges like this, if you're a first-time author like yourself. So I like that you're being real.
yep,
So did you
you know,
did you ever get writer's block when you were writing this book?
right. So that is where I will get more into that.
Mm,
So I did have situations where I just didn't know how to piece together some ideas.
mm,
But I guess what helped me a lot was the fact that I was never writing the book in sequence. There was no order really with how I was writing.
mm,
So I really started with just ideas,
mm,
and I would write, expand upon that idea, and then I would realize, wait a minute, all right, if I expand a little more, maybe I could pursue this point, and really come up with a chapter here.
mm,
And as I got further into the writing, I recognized, wait a minute, here's where I could connect this. And so now this chapter could go in front.
mm,
So the beauty of writing is that, especially when you're writing a book,
mhm,
is that there's no need to really go in order. As long as you are addressing topics within your main subject,
mhm,
you have that flexibility to really write, you know, just continue flowing.
mm.
And then towards the end, you could formulate how you're going to put the text together to really come with something that flows from start to finish. So that is really the beauty of it when you start writing. So I think the challenge was there were moments where there was a little bit of writer's block.
Mm.
And there were moments where I thought, why am I even doing this? So the project was on hold for some time.
Right.
As I mean, I think you could guess that with the timeline that I gave you
Well,
from when I
and you
started.
see that I was surprised because when
Yeah,
was the book published? I'm seeing it
yeah,
copyrighted in 2022. It's published then, and it
yeah,
could be 2014 or something like that.
yes, yes, yes. Yeah, some ideas. In fact, I lost the first diary that I was jotting down things on.
Mhm, mhm.
Yeah, and then I was like, nah, I have to do this. And I restarted, you know.
So there's
So it
some
was
hope.
a journey.
There's some hope for people.
Of
Because
course, of
I
course.
think I think like a lot of people there, they just think, it just comes to you as if you're Salman Rushdie or your Vidya Naipaul or somebody or Stephen King, they're just churning out books.
Mm,
Even myself, I sat there, I said, look, Arthur wrote a book 2022, and you don't see the work taking place in the
yeah,
background. You just think it just is
yeah.
a thing.
So even I had an experience recently. I had the good fortune of being detailed really to attend a book launch of very a renowned researcher in the field of criminology and things, Mr. Ivelaw Griffith, Professor Ivelaw Griffith. And he was saying that his book is way bigger than mine. So I give him a bit of leeway, but he was saying it took about 13 years.
Wow.
To compile. Yeah, so when you hear things like that, you realize, not too bad.
Not
you
too
know?
bad. You did not do too badly at all.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what did you learn about yourself through writing and the publishing process? What did you, Arthur Carr, learn about yourself?
I would say that I learned that a lot of the times in the past, a little less now, I really discounted how, I would say, how much, what I was capable of. You know, there are times where we don't give ourselves enough credit. I constantly talk to persons within my department at work who are maybe younger than me. And I tell them about how I felt when I was leaving university back in 2008 with my first degree. And I honestly did not apply to a lot of places because I thought that I wasn't worthy enough. I thought that I wasn't prepared enough as a student. And so now going into the workplace, I would be really not giving the best offering that an employer could get. You know, I wasn't a first class honors student. And so I thought, you know, they're not going to want me. And in writing this book, I recognized that, hey, I have an ability. I have something to offer. And, you know, it really made me realize that the sky's the limit. So that is what really I learned from the process about myself.
Excellent. What has been the reception of this book? I'm curious to know not only like the public, but what your colleagues think, because you're writing about, you know, you're a young police officer. There would be older heads there would be younger ones coming in. What has been the reception overall of the book, and specifically within your, you know, your profession?
So I would say within my department, my colleagues are some of the best colleagues you could come across, you know, very supportive.
It's really heartening to hear that. Yeah.
Yeah, I wouldn't tell you the nickname they have for me at work, but you know,
off air.
but you know, it's really in fun and really respectable, you know, the nickname actually. But
nice.
They've all been so supportive in terms of me writing this book. And I'm stopping really to just show that appreciation to them, you know, that sort of support that they've given me. Outside of my immediate colleagues, the other persons who have heard about the book, I've had persons who have gone through the recruitment process, my batchmates, who made it their duty to get a copy of the book.
Lovely.
You know, yeah, persons who, I mean, they ensured that, and they just to even avoid even having to have the hassle of trying for us to meet up and stuff. I had colleagues who just ordered it off Amazon and made sure that they took a picture and they sent it to me and showed that, hey, must support you. You know, so the reception from my colleagues has been really awesome and heartwarming.
That's very good to hear. Yeah.
There have been some executives as well who have shown such, you know, and they have given me such encouraging words, you know, and yeah, I think the reception has been good. I think it's all left up to me really with respect to, I guess, more marketing, heavy marketing.
Yes.
You know, to really go further than I am at the moment.
Yes.
And for some reason, there's always that sort of hesitation with respect to the amount of marketing I'm doing. You know, being a serving officer, you don't want to be too out there.
Yes, you have to strike that balance between your public life, your private life, and then for police officers, it's so tricky as well because you have to think security wise, you know. So yeah, I completely understand that. What's the best piece of feedback you've gotten from a reader? What's the feedback? People have been reading your book. What have you taken away as the best feedback that somebody has given you that on your book?
I mean, that is a trouble question you're asking me there. You know, I can't pinpoint one particular piece of feedback.
I know Trinidadians are, that's why I'm asking the question, because every time you do something, Trinidadians have some way of they could improve on it. You should have, even the color, you should have changed the color.
Yeah.
Put this in. So I was interested as I would ask you, anybody give you any piece of feedback?
I would tell you this, there's one memorable reaction, I should say.
Okay.
There's a memorable reaction of a colleague of mine who literally, as he was reading the book, he was in another office area on the same floor that I am. And he left his office and he came and he knocked on the door and he said, wake up.
Yeah.
And he made some remarks and he said, boy, hey, I love it when you're happy, this sort of thing. And it was such a bit of excitement that he had, Yeah. I think that was one of the best reactions, I would say, to the book.
I like hearing the support from your colleagues. It's coming out in your stories, it's coming out in your voice, and I'm just imagining it in the workplace. So I'm very heartened to hear that, because you don't get to see the human side of police officers often. You see them as authority figures or somebody to lay down the law. So hearing this side of them is very, heartening to hear that.
Yeah.
So you've moved through these different professions. Has that change your perspective on life and your perspective on work and pursuing your passions? Because you've really done a combination of things here that some people don't even do in their one lifetime. So how has moving through these professions and doing this work change your perspective on pursuing your passions and so forth?
So I think my movement through different fields has to do a bit with my personality. So despite my hesitant nature in terms of believing that I wasn't worthy or so in my younger years, there was one thing about me, which was, if this didn't work out in this time, you're going to undo this.
Yeah.
So I remember, I think where that showed up the most was at university. So I think everyone has that experience at UWI. I don't know if things have changed, but looking back, it's a lot of years have passed. But when I entered, I remember in first year, they would tell you, all right, you're going to have, I think it was a student, a tutor, I think it was something advisor, right? Your
academic advisor.
Academic advisor, thank you. And I remember reaching out to my academic advisor, and I'm here in 2024 and I've never had a meeting with my academic advisor. Right? So I had to figure things out on my own. So I remember I entered university to do a degree in environmental and natural resource management. And it was I think it was a double major. So environmental and natural resource management, and the other major was chemistry. Well, let me tell you, chemistry changes quite a bit when you enter university. Yeah? First course, fail, or should I say barely fail? Yeah. Because it granted me access to the supplemental in the July, August.
Okay.
Second semester, chemistry course again, barely fail again.
Right.
Supplemental again. That very same year, I had to do I was doing an internship with the Unit Trust Corporation. And traveling and the whole, idea of really going through that, traveling from work and then looking to study and stuff, it wasn't happening.
Right.
Essentially, when it was time for exams, I failed.
Oh, wow.
And so now I was going into year 2 without that second major, in terms of what courses I would have to choose. And I quickly had to navigate what courses I was going to do. And that's where the minor in sports nutrition came. And to add to that, I was someone who recognized that my parents, in my mind, were struggling through the assisting me through university, that era.
Mm-hmm.
I remember the first year we started the first semester, it was dollar for dollar. And then at the end of that semester, I think the Prime Minister announced it would be full payment. So the gates came into full, right? So I remember that first semester, my father had to take a loan. And I was like, geez, honey, this is the first semester. And my father taking a loan already. How this man going to afford this thing? And as much as we got gate, of course, he still has to support me in terms of, transport and to and from, from school,
Mm-hmm.
and buying text, etc. So I took it upon myself that, hey, I had to graduate within 3 years.
Yeah.
And so that's where that whole focus came in, where, yeah, what if this didn't happen, we ain't going to sit down and cry about it. We fail out our chemistry, we're going to pick up something else.
Yeah.
And I remember looking through that manual also, the brochure with all the courses.
Yes.
Yes. And just searching for something that I would like. And of course, sports nutrition come in and say, hey, anything with sports, I love it.
Right.
Love sports. And so I did that, jumped into that other department and started doing things. And so that sort of translated into the work environment. So, I was like, all right, I've gotten into ASA, right? That was my first job.
Right.
And I thought to myself, all right, ASA, right, is good. But, I couldn't see the level of growth that I was hoping for within ASA, right? As much as it was a beautiful environment to work in, I had to think about my long-term goals. And so I started looking out, and that's where I decided, all right, a nice thing to go into is teaching.
Yes.
And I think I touched on teaching a bit when I was a little bit younger, when I assisted my cousin when she was doing CXC, and I would go and help her with maths, etc., throughout the CXC time. And she was well prepared for CXC in the end, and she got her passes also. And so from that experience, I recognized that, hey, maybe teaching could be a good area to get into. But I didn't get into secondary school teaching, which was my first aim. And I think things worked out in a way that I ended up getting into primary school.
Right.
And I guess because it wasn't what I wanted initially, I guess it was a little bit easier to leave it. But it really had situations, just things fell into place, at certain times that really pushed me to do what I did. So the teaching happened in a situation where, all right, I didn't get into secondary school. And it really simply was a matter of my degree itself was lacking some of the courses required for me to teach environmental science at the secondary school level.
Okay.
So they were telling me that I needed to do some geography courses, which I didn't do. And so in my mind, I was not going back to university to do 1 or 2 courses to do this thing. So again, my eyes looked elsewhere. What are my other options that I could continue going forward and not having to step back and then try to go forward?
Right.
So that really, was how things worked out. And essentially, I just did the natural thing, did my master's, and around the same time, I had the opportunity to get into green engineering. And I just navigated into there and that field. And I don't know, as I said before, it just so happened that I felt as though I needed to look for something that was paying a bit more, and I made that move.
I like that you're describing, because I'm a teacher as an educator, and I'm always interested in career paths for students. And we touched a bit about before, police officers are not necessarily seen in a positive light, but I like how you describe an educational path and a career path that wasn't linear. you studied this degree, but you didn't necessarily go into that particular thing full time. So it's a good message, I think, to students out there that you may study one thing, but it doesn't necessarily mean that that has to be the be all and end all of your career. Let me ask you, do you enjoy being a police officer? Do you enjoy doing this now?
So my how would I say? It definitely, like any career,
Right.
there are times where I am absolutely exhausted by it, and I feel as though I need to leave immediately. There are times where I I really find some really a lot of enjoyment within the field, So it really varies according to the time of the year or so, according to what's going on.
Right.
When I look at what I've been able to be exposed to,
Right.
I've had a unique career.
You do.
I was fortunate enough to work with persons within the highest offices of Trinidad and Tobago.
Lovely.
And I think not a lot of persons could boast about that.
Yeah, policing is a career path where you encounter so many people from different walks of life. So it's not like you're set with one class or one, profession. You get opportunities to meet people just sometimes all around the world if you have dignitaries maybe coming in. So it's such a versatile, I think, career, dangerous as it can be, dealing with public negative perception. It is still a versatile career that I think can be very enriching. I'm going to pause and ask you a very cheeky question. Because I think people always ask women these things, So what's it like being a first-time author and writing full-time as well as having a family to raise? What's it like doing all of that? They like to ask the females that. What's it like for you?
To be honest, balancing, the career and writing is tough. Now, I think it's really an individual situation where if you're trying to do good, it becomes tough. So if I was not trying to be a good father and husband, and just doing what I feel, is fun, quote unquote fun for me, then all right, maybe I could take quite a bit of load off of my the stress that I face each day.
Right.
But because I have really took on that task of trying to be a good father and a role model for my sons, and trying to be a good husband, not perfect, but really just always trying, that is what actually brings more challenge and difficulty to my life. And there are times where I honestly just sacrifice writing because I know I need to spend time with the family. But it really comes down to what it is you really see in the long term as most important to you. You have to prioritize. And I think my priorities always lie within family first.
Excellent.
So once the family is there and taken care of, I think then the writing could always happen. And as I showed before, it takes quite some time. Even without the family, it still took some time.
Yeah.
So, so I think the balancing is, it's something that everyone must face. There's no way that you can just be one-dimensional. You have to be able to balance, different things within your life, and that's just how it goes. I've accepted that, as much as it brings a lot of stress, but I've accepted that.
Okay. So do you have any upcoming virtual or in-person events where, book signings and you have any of those coming up, or have you been on any of those? What's the experience like? You talked about promoting the book and that balance between, your private and public life kind of a way. How has that experience been?
I think so. I would have done, let me see. I try to make sure that I don't forget persons' names. But so remember one of my early interviews was actually with another colleague who, that's Leanne Stout. She did an interview with me on Instagram, and well, it was an Instagram live.
Okay.
You know, I guess that was my first sort of introduction to marketing. You know, marketing the book.
Right.
And then, well, of course, I met up with that's Kevin George on Tropical Literature Creatives.
Yes.
So I did an interview with him as well on YouTube. Could check that out.
I did.
And yeah, you know, and of course, recently there were two things that happened recently as well. So I remember the Police Training Academy, the library, they actually hosted a sort of, I would have to say, an award ceremony really for, I think it was a quiz that they were having. And within that same ceremony, they decided that they would celebrate me as an author, as a serving police officer, you know, and they actually presented me with just a token, you know, of appreciation for writing and publishing my book. You know, and I was able to speak to those persons within that forum. And then a few weeks after that, I actually attended a book village for local authors, Caribbean authors. That was, I think it was OM Publishing. And that was at the Central Bank Auditorium. And just so happened, I was caught by a TTT journalist and was interviewed. You know, so there's actually an interview of me in on TTT. So yeah, outside of those random events and planned events, you know, I have not done a real book launch, you know, individual book launch.
Okay.
You know, but I'm not sure if I want to do something like that for this book.
Okay.
I think definitely the second book, I would take that avenue.
Okay.
You know, but yeah, perhaps not for this book, unless it's something for that is perhaps organized by the police service or something like that. And I would do that, you know, that would be something that I would have, you know, no problem doing. But as an individual, yeah.
I know NALIS does things for, have you had experience with NALIS here in Trinidad and Tobago as well? I know they do things for authors.
Yes, so I was actually for the 2022 authors, first-time authors, you know, they present plaques to you, etc., recognition plaques. And so I was within that list for the 2022 published authors.
And coming from that, where can we find your book? Where's the book?
All right, the book can be the physical copies. You can get them at either the paper-based bookshop. That's at Alcazar Street in Sinclair, Port of Spain. Right. I think most persons would know that bookstore as the bookstore that is really connected with Bocas Lit Fest.
Right. Yes.
Right. And you can also get it at Island Stationery. That's in Arima. And that's my cousin's store. So of course, make sure to support my cousin.
Shout out Island Stationery.
Right. And yeah, that's at the corner of Woodford and Farfan Street in Arima. So that's where you can get those copies. And of course, now you can also purchase your physical copies, the paperback, via Amazon. And I think it's book. What is?
Yeah, I'll put them. I'll put the link. I'll put in the link of the link of the video. Well, thank you so much for joining me, Arthur. I really want people to remember your profile that I gave in the beginning, because it's so heartening to hear police officers are walking around and they're not one-dimensional. There's intelligence and there's professionalism behind the badge and inside the uniform. So as Arthur said, you can find his book on Amazon, local bookstores. Is it in the NALIS library? Is it in NALIS?
It should be at the Heritage Library, I believe, at NALIS.
We'll put it in the link.
Because-
We'll put it in the link below for you guys to get. So Arthur, the author, thank you so much. I'll put all Arthur's information in the link to this video. And it has been amazing having you here with this very engaging interview. So I want my listeners to remember, you ignite curiosity and you empower minds. Thank you for listening.
Thank you so much for having me.